name is Becky Berg, the K-5 math coach for Billings Public Schools. Thanks so much for coming together as a staff to learn more about the BPS Instructional Framework. I hope you appreciate the hard work of the BPS Math Task Force. Let's take a look.
The purpose of this video message is to clarify the BPS K-5 math expectations within the Instructional Framework document. So, as a math task force, our goal was to develop a 2 to 3 page document that would utilize the research as a foundation for the work. We would outline the district vision for math. The task force would also define what effective math instruction looks like here in Billings Public Schools, as well as clarify the structure and the components of our Tier 1 math block. So here's the process that happened. We had 31 teachers on the math task force with each school represented. We met 3 times in January and February and took notes, really collectively made some decisions and clarified what was really important. And then from that, we had a document creation team from the task force that met for a full day on February 22nd to compile and create this document. On February 23rd, Tracy Piltz and myself did some fine-tune editing to the document to complete the work. It was quite interesting because in our first meeting with the task force, this was posed. Math went so well today for my students. As I reflected on the lesson, I think it was because. So before we dove into the research or got into creating the document, it was quite interesting to hear 2 key things that kept coming up in response to this. We want kids justifying and explaining their strategies, and we want kids making connections between what they already know, along with the different types of representations. Super powerful. As we dove into the research, these things kept coming up, all right? Justifying and making connections. So as we created our vision statement, that was a beautiful process. We really want to develop mathematicians who can solve real-world problems, think flexibly, and justify their reasoning, right? It's the ultimate goal that we want for our mathematicians. Let's go ahead and take a look at the instructional framework document. As you can see, this document begins with our vision and then steps into how students learn math. In Billings Public Schools, we want students to have an opportunity to understand the math, do the math, and apply the math. We want them to have that conceptual understanding through the use of manipulatives, pictorial models, math talk and discourse, making connections between these representations. Students, we want them to understand the math, understand the concepts. We also want them to be able to have procedural fluency. We want them to be flexible, efficient, and accurate in the way that they solve. These procedures should be based on conceptual understanding, place value, properties, and relational thinking. And then that third leg of the stool, if you will, is application. We want kids to understand the math, do the math, and apply the math. Application is when students are solving problems, they're making sense, they're using a strategy, they're justifying and checking for reasonableness. Within our resource, the read, draw, write, and tape diagrams are a key tool that can really help us with that problem-solving process. So as you can see, we have a balanced math instruction. We want all 3 of these to be a part of the learning because that leads to the depth and rigor of mathematics, and it's something we can keep building upon.
Let's move on to page 2 and take a look at our daily math block components. Here you're going to notice those 4 key components. Fluency, which starts our daily lesson, activates that prior knowledge, we bridge some small learning gaps, and really builds that confidence, right? That math community of learners, much like our number sense routines. All right, that's around 10 minutes. Now, let's jump to the end of the lesson where we do that important piece of debriefing and reflecting, synthesizing students' learning, clarifying the misconceptions we see happening during perhaps that problem set, and an opportunity for that formative assessment in that exit ticket. In the middle of our lesson, we have the launch and the learn, right? The launch creates the access point, builds some context, hooks them in, and the learn section is that meaty part of the lesson, right? Where it presents that new learning, lots of discourse, metacognition, and of course, opportunity for independent practice through the problem set. That's that 40 minutes. Many of us, including myself, have often felt that 60 minutes just wasn't enough time to get through that lesson without feeling extremely rushed. As you can see here, the shift that you will find in this document, this instructional framework, is that our math block for grades 1 through 5 will be 90 minutes and kindergarten 75 minutes. All right? What that means is at least 1 hour of that time is dedicated to your Eureka Math Squared lesson. All right? If we take a look at this shift, I want to point out a couple things. All right, currently, 60 minutes a day for K-5 was the expectation, is the expectation. Along with that, we have been doing ST Math, K1 for 60 minutes a week, grades 2 through 5, 90 minutes a week. So if we analyze that, you can see that grades 2 through 5 during the week are spending 6.5 hours on math, and K1 6 hours. So the shift then would be that this 90 minutes in grades 1 through 5 is inclusive of ST Math, as well as for kindergarten. So we are including the ST Math digital time when we talk about the 90-minute block, okay? 15 minutes more a week for kinder, first grade, an hour and a half more because you were 60 minutes a week with ST. I think a lot of you were getting in a little more than that. And then second through fifth, that would be 1 hour more a week, okay? The committee then talked about, well, what does that mean for us? And really the number one thing with that additional time is just more time for the lesson, right? Not feeling so rushed, really giving them ample time on that problem set and for that land and debrief. It includes our digital learning time of ST Math. During this time, we could pre-teach, we could reteach, we can bridge some of those gaps that we have, those small gaps to fill in as we step into the next lesson. You can see the other suggestions listed here. So this will give you that time for some of the things you've been hoping for in your Tier 1 block. On the last page, you're going to see connections and progressions, right? Connections were a critical piece and are a critical piece of how we teach math in Billings Public Schools. When students can connect to their prior experiences with the models and the strategies that they've used within your grade and vertically throughout the grades, it's very empowering to them and it improves the depth and rigor of their learning. You can see here Hattie's effect size, right? We're always trying to connect to that prior knowledge. The research supports that. And then the next section on that last page, these are those top things that as a committee, as a task force, we simply wanted to make sure we weren't assuming and that we were clarifying. Number one being use the adopted resource because kids are going to connect to their prior knowledge and build on what they know. Prepare and study your lesson content. That's important no matter what grade you teach. Use your proficiency scales and pacing guide to help you clarify the learning targets, determine a student's level of proficiency. Use the Eureka Math Squared models, the strategies, and the vocabulary, and these are based on place value properties and relational thinking. And when you are teaching math, apply a variety of grouping strategies and engagement strategies. Keep in mind that art of teaching, right? how we engage our kids. And then you'll see the formative process, right? Dylan Williams says, students learn at double the rate if indeed we're using this formative process. And it's what you're doing. You're clarifying the learning. You're getting some evidence of what they know and don't know. You're looking at that. And then you're making next instructional decisions. Okay? The end of the document shares the research and key resources that we used during our time together as a task force and within this document.
And there are just so many people I need to thank. I really appreciate you. The K-5 Math Task Force, the document creation team. Thanks for all your hard work on this process and this task.
Before we head into our discussions, I just really sincerely want to thank you for your time today. I just appreciate you and all that you do. So next steps, with the leadership of your principal and your math task force member, we would like you to simply discuss this instructional framework, these BPS expectations for math, and talk about how this is going to impact you, our students, the district. All right, have those conversations. Then come back together and just have a whole group discussion. Your principal is going to go ahead and complete just a very simple Google feedback form that shares key points that were brought out, feedback, questions that you have. So they will complete that for your staff upon completion of your discussion. So thank you so much. Reach out if I can help you in any way as the year continues.